welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we are going to meet a local woman who is a blogger, counselor, and does a lot, author, does wonderful things, and she's going to speak mostly to the women, but to everybody else out there. This is Tanya Parker. Welcome.
Thank you. So nice of you to have me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really excited too. I was like looking at your blog and thinking, you're a real person.
Yes.
And that doesn't always come, sometimes on social media,
Sure.
people are presenting their perfect self, which isn't their life.
Right.
And you're talking to us about how we live our lives as women. Initially, you started with single moms, but now it's a broader group.
Yes, absolutely. So for me, especially through being online and through social media and being on the blog, I do like to post nice pictures, but I always tell the story behind that. I share a lot of my life. I share a lot of what goes on. I actually have 2 grown daughters, a husband, grandchildren. I share all of that. So I try to share as much of my life, but I do it with a positive spin.
Well, and I think that's important because sometimes when we see perfection out there, we give up.
Right.
Like, there's no way I can do that.
Right.
But if we understand the choices and the struggle or how people got there, it's much better.
Absolutely. I share lots of different challenges. I share some very tough times in my life. I started that with the book. Although I wanted it to be inspirational, and I tend to be a pretty optimistic person, I wanted it to be real too. And so that's really where my even name now came from, which is The Real Chic Life, because I like to tell stories and I like to share my real life.
And that's the interesting part. So it's real and chic.
Yeah,
so how do you get to, how do you do things in the real world? Not how can you be the perfect model,
Absolutely.
Which none of us,
right.
may not be there.
Right, absolutely. I think that it's important, what I love about social media, and I know that a lot of people have different feelings about it, but I do love that it gives us a voice. It gives women a voice, and all kinds of women that you might not necessarily see in traditional media. So, there's women of color, there's women who are, are LGBTQ, there's all kinds of different women that are able to have this space and to share, plus size women. And I think that media in general is kind of getting on the bandwagon with some of these things, but we get to put ourselves out there and we get to make choices of who we follow and who we relate to. So it actually gives us more choice.
And you also are a blogger who's been featured in the Oprah Magazine, O Magazine. And that kind of, too, is one of those spaces that has always been very broad-based and welcoming and featured women of all sorts.
Absolutely.
All body types. And
yes, absolutely. And one of the fun things that I did was an ad. It was an ad for Pandora Magazine, and it featured 3 real women. And I don't mean to say that models aren't real women, but 3 average women who have regular jobs. And we were the inside cover of a December Pandora ad. So it's really neat. They do a lot of featuring real women in their ads, and I think that's really special.
So tell us how you got into the authoring and blogging world. Right. I mean, I always think that's, a tough thing to do for people.
It is, and for me, I'm still learning a lot about blogging. I've been doing it about 3 years, but what happened was I wrote this book. I actually self-published it. It was called Single Mom Chic, and I wrote it mostly for my friends and family. People kept saying, you should write a book. You should tell us how you got your master's degree when you were a single mom of 2. You should tell us how you always look put together. So I wrote a book that kind of just explained that. I really talked about looking good on a budget, and kind of curating this capsule wardrobe so you don't have to have a ton of clothes, about building your support team. So I started doing that. And then after I did that, people started to reach out to me from different places. People found the book. It was on Amazon, and I wasn't expecting it to be this big thing. And not to say that it was, but I had people who reached out from faraway places, even as far as Singapore. And so people said, you should start blogging. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead and do that too. I seem to be really susceptible to what people keep asking me to do. So I started the blog, and that was just a wonderful space. I'm a school counselor by day, so I started it when we had a snowstorm, and we were actually snowed in for like a week, and I had all this free time, and I thought, I'll be a blogger. And I churned out all these blog posts, and then real life started again. And so I wasn't able to blog as consistently, but it was enough to get me started. It was a catalyst. So one day I was reading the Oprah Magazine, which has long since been a favorite of mine, and they had a call in for people who had a social media presence and something that they were passionate about. And I didn't think in a million years, but it was a quick little online application, and I just submitted it out there into the universe, and lo and behold, I was selected. I ended up my first year with all of these big bloggers who'd been blogging for years, like, 10 or more years. So it was a little intimidating, but it was fun. It was a nice learning experience for me. And I just really kind of focused on doing my own work. And at the end of that year, I was selected as the Oprah Magazine Overall Contribution Award. So I was like their #1
Oh my gosh.
blogger. I was really, really shocked by that, but really happy.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was quite
so did
an
you
honor.
meet Oprah?
I actually have been in the space with her a couple of times. We went on the Oprah cruise and she spoke there. She was on the cruise with us. I didn't have a one-on-one meeting. And then I've gone to Oprah's Favorite Things 2 years in a row. So the very first year, it was fabulous. The very first year she was there, she wasn't there last year. But the first year that I went, she was there. And so she was about as far away from me maybe as you are. But it was a room of about 50 people.
But
so
that's still amazing.
it was. It really was. And Gayle King was there. And
I love Gayle,
she's
too.
fabulous, and I've met her several times, had quite a few just short conversations with her. She's lovely as well.
So how, I know you've written books and it's a long story, but if you could just say something to women about how to live a real chic life, how would you boil it down? What's sort of the starting point?
I think the starting point is figuring out what's right for you. I don't think that, I'm sometimes in spaces. I just came back from Palm Springs with a group of fabulous women. We went for Fashion Week. And some of them are, they're like super fashionable. And I think I tend to just kind of dress like most women do. I like to look nice, but I don't do all the print mixing and things like that. So I think it's okay to find your niche, what makes you feel good, and just do more of that. I think taking the time to spend on yourself, whether that is, again, like learning a new hobby or paying attention to your hair and makeup, whatever it is that makes you feel good. I don't think that there's one way to be, but I do think that you need to find your way and really own that.
And, well, okay, you make that sound easy, and I think it's a hard thing. I think that, especially for women who have kids, for you've got the job and the kids and the spouse, and there's all these pieces, and sometimes the me, I guess I'm speaking personally here,
sure.
It gets lost.
Absolutely. And so I think that you really have to be intentional about it. I think you have to pencil yourself in. I know people say that all the time, but I think that you do. You have to say this, whether it's I want to work out more, this is the time that I'm going to do this every day. Just like you put your kids' soccer games and everything else on your calendar, you have to put you on that calendar too. I think many times women are praised for being selfless. And while that might sound nice, I don't think that that's a great way to live. I don't really think, one of the ways that I started the book was with the whole, the airplane analogy that you have to actually put your own mask on first, and I truly believe that.
Because you can't save other people until you are safe yourself.
Absolutely. There's just so many of those out there. You can't pour from an empty cup. I think all of that is really true. I don't think that you can be the best mother or daughter or wife or friend if you are not taking care of yourself. And so I think if you look at it from that way, you really are taking care of the people that you love better if you also take care of you. Because when we're not happy, they can sense that. They know.
Well, and you get resentful, or you get too tired, or
Right.
and then you're not the best.
And that's when things start to fall apart.
So in your life, how did you learn that? Because it's easy to say, and it's hard to do.
Yeah. So I think for me, maybe just kind of seeing that example a little bit in my mother. She was the kind of person that was always really put together. She took that time to kind of get herself together, and she did things that she enjoyed. She had a career, even though she really didn't have to. She worked because in a lot of the women where we grew up, I grew up in a military family, and a lot of the moms were stay-at-home moms, and she had to move around a lot, but she always made a point, because it was important to her to go out and find that job, to kind of keep herself together. So while she was a good mom, she still was a good woman to herself. And so I think I had that as an example. Now for me, it was a little bit more challenging, because once I did get divorced and I was a single mom, it's harder to do that when there's not another person. It's hard enough to do it when you do have another person.
There's less money, there's no backup.
Absolutely.
You've got to kind of do it all. It's all on your shoulders.
Right, absolutely. And so that's where the real intention piece comes in. You really have to say, this is important to me, this is what I want, and I'm going to do what I have to do to make that happen.
Fascinating. So what other ideas or tips can you impart while you're here?
So I think it's really nice to kind of have someone that's kind of your inspiration. So it may not necessarily be your mother. It might be a coworker or a friend. I have people all the time that reach out and say, tell me about how you do this, or how does this work for you? I don't think that you have to be a blogger or someone on Instagram in order to be able to impart advice to someone else when it's asked. So I think maybe having, whether it's a real life kind of person that you relate to, that there's just something about that person that you see yourself in, or whether that's someone online or a celebrity or whatever. I think having kind of a little bit of a muse is nice. I really do. And I think that where we're going, where we get to see all kinds of women and not just what the media feeds us, I think that you have even more choice in who that is. And so whether it's, someone who's achieving something that you want to achieve or someone who dresses the way you'd like to dress, ask them questions or kind of just follow along and pay attention to what they're doing.
That's a
Find
good
someone
idea.
that it relates to you.
And you are very accessible. I notice on your blog, when people comment,
Yes.
you always answer, you interact.
I do. Because for me, it's more about building community. I'm not there to be worshipped by anybody or anybody think I'm some kind of celebrity. I'm there to be a friend. And so I do the same thing on my Instagram. You'll see every single comment gets a response because I do think it's more about community. It's not really about me. It's about the women that are there.
How do you have time for that?
Sometimes I wonder that myself, and sometimes it does get a little bit challenging, but I just try to juggle everything. I try to make it work. I do a lot. Every school that I've worked at, I've ran an empowering young girls group. My kids are older now, so that makes it a little bit easier. But I do still have a family. Family is extremely important to me, and I do have my friends outside of the social media world, so I just really try to make time where I can. But I do things that are important to me, too, and that's pretty important to me.
Well, so this does tie in with your day job. I mean,
Yes.
It's different than your day job, but you are a school counselor
I am.
at Eaton.
At Eaton Middle School, and I absolutely love it. It's a great place to work. The staff is wonderful and the kids are great. And I actually just did a social media workshop with girls where we talked about self-esteem. And I was really shocked about their answers. I had this whole presentation planned where I was going to kind of talk to them about representation and making sure you're following, positive people. And they really were already doing that. So many of them shared with me people that they are following that either, they have natural hair like mine, or they have a sense of humor. They like the same books that I do. They were following positive people. It was not what I expected to hear from them. It really was a good session. I enjoyed it a lot.
Isn't that great?
It really
was. So do you think that the girls who are middle school age now are having different influencers than maybe your girls did when they were in middle school, or you and I did when we were in?
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't have been social media. It would have been TV or whatever.
Right. I think there's choice. There's more choice. And that's really nice because, again, you can select whoever you want to have in your sphere. Now, there were still some social media issues. I don't want to make it sound like social media is this. But typically what I heard from them was that the issues that they were having were with people that they actually knew.
Right.
They weren't with these, random people that are just on social media. So they were choosing to follow people who are positive. And I think that that's really important, too, because a lot of times where you see that students or even people are having problems, it's usually where we don't feel like we have choice. So people that you might be sitting next to in a classroom, you don't really get to choose that, or people that might be a part of your family. So just really kind of talking to them about making sure that when you do have an opportunity to choose, that you're choosing positivity and that you don't have to respond to every negative comment. You don't have, whether that's in real life or on social media, you can choose to kind of take the high road.
And that's a tough thing, I think, for females to learn at all ages. But it really does start, I think, in middle school.
Yes.
I mean, that you're in that perfect niche because that's where the body consciousness and the sensitivities and the clicks and it's just such a tough age.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of them, that is a little bit of an escape because, again, no matter what their, appearance is like, they can find someone who looks just like that, who understands. And so that's really nice in the social media world. Not as easy to do in real life, but a little bit easier to do in social media. So I think, really just having like open communication with your kids is so important too. And talking to them about some of the issues that you might have had when you were younger, because a lot of times they think nobody else has ever had this problem except for me. And mom wouldn't understand or dad doesn't understand. And so giving them an opportunity to talk about what they're feeling, what they're seeing, who they're following, and why they're following those people is really important too.
Any other ideas or tips you have for women that you want to share?
Well, I just think that the self-care thing is just so important. So I think that really being intentional about that is probably the best thing. But I think that representation matters as well, too. I think it's important to see yourself. I love the whole wave of using the real woman, the regular woman in ads and things like that. Because for me, I grew up, in not a traditional African-American community. My dad was in the Air Force, so, I was not there. Were not a lot of people who looked like me, but they really made a point to, well, it was easier because Oprah was on TV all the time. It was the height of Naomi Campbell. So there were all these women in the media who I could look to and see, but my parents also did a really good job of, having pictures in the house that displayed people who looked like me. And so I think that that's important, whether it's for yourself or for your kids, just having things that represent a little closer to who you are so that you can see yourself. I think people want to see themselves.
Interesting. Or they want to see a better version of themselves.
Right. They don't want to see, if you're not 5'10", blonde, blue-eyed, you might not want to see all of your images looking like that.
Exactly.
You might want to see somebody that looks a little bit more like you. You want to see those people celebrated too. And then I also think that it's really important to find, something that you're passionate about and something that you're good at. Because I think that beyond just the physical, we all want to feel good about a contribution that we're making, a talent that we have, a passion project that we have. So I think that really kind of nurturing whatever it is that you're interested in. I'm constantly learning. I'm taking golf lessons. I've taken golf lessons for a couple of years now. I've taken tennis lessons. I'm like the constant student. I love to learn. I like to try new things, and I think that's important. I think that's a part of what, as we age too, that keeps us young.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, let's tell people how they can follow you on Instagram and how they can find your blog.
Okay, so my blog is therealchiclife.com, so www.therealchiclife.com. And my Instagram is The Real Chic Life, so it's super simple.
That should be easy to find.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for
being
me.
in this area. What a wonderful asset it is to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
You've been here for how long?
We've been here since September. So I'm still kind of learning my way around, but I love it so far. Love it.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank
Tanya.
you, Robin.
And thank you for watching. I hope that you have learned some stuff, and the main one is, I think, find that time, find your passion, nurture that passion, and if you want to learn more, you know how to follow Tanya for updates. Thanks for watching.